Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started. Prepared? Eden, Just Be, Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Warrior Network. To quote Dimitri, and I think this is a great thing to start the show, no religion is higher than truth. So to welcome you, co-founder of this and spiritual director of the Spiritual Arts Institute in California, a premier metaphysical school. Hey there, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me on the show.
I'm so glad that you are here. And I do specifically, I've got a whole bunch of questions for you, yet I really want to go at least take one segment to go into auras, because I've been doing this show for about 2 years and there hasn't been a show that dives into that. So
yeah, well, just had the 25th anniversary edition of Change Your Aura, Change Your Life.
Wow. So perfect. And
Yeah.
for those who regularly come to the show, sometimes I do a little talk before we get into things. I don't really feel like doing that today, but I've got my 3D to 5D t-shirt on. Yay. So let me get into this bio. Dimitri is how do you say this word? Illumined?
Illumined is the way to say it.
Illumined. Thank you. Illumined metaphysical teacher, healer, and co-author. He has been instrumental in bringing the Spiritual Arts Institute to the place it is today, as we discussed, a premier metaphysical school with Barbara Martin, and she is called the Mozart of Metaphysics. He is co-author of the international bestseller, Change Your Aura, Change Your Life, which you just talked about, Communing with the Divine, Karma and Reincarnation. And I have to tell you this, Dimitri, the healing power of your aura. I was looking at book covers and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I have that one.
Oh,
And
great.
I
There it
do.
is. Dun, da, da, da.
I know. And I was thinking how long it's been since I've had that book. I think I've had it for like 10 or 12 years. So
Yeah.
that was beautiful. And another book, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. He is an eloquent speaker, which we'll get to see today, on a wide variety of spiritual topics, lectures across the country, appears on numerous podcasts and radio shows. With Barbara, he is co-creator of the Spiritual Arts Institute's programs, course curriculums, and leads the founder workshops and training classes offered at the Institute with Barbara. Okay, and there's much more I can read yet. I want to discuss more of this in our conversation.
Sure.
Okay, let me lead this off, if I may. So many synchronicities. All right, you, from what I understand, had your first spiritual awakenings at 25. I was 29. Okay, when it started. Mine was through meditation and a teacher that I had. So I'm going to talk just a little bit. Yours seemed to have just happened, which please describe that later if I'm incorrect on that. We were both in creative fields. You were in film. You also were nominated for an Academy Award for your short film, Don't Let It Bother You. And I was in graphic arts. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So this may be a loaded question, but maybe not. So I want to hear about your first awakening. And for me, there were two, like getting more connected with God and really discovering the spiritual side. And then 4 years ago, waking up to the great awakening. So can you tell us how it came to be in the beginning and give a little of your history as well? Okay, I'm done talking now.
No, there's a lot. We're trying to cram in a lot in a short period of time here. Yeah.
Okay,
and I have to talk a little bit about Barbara too, because a lot of what I'm sharing is kind of based. She was my teacher. We worked together for 40 years. All right. And she started as I was her student, and we both loved to write. So we started writing, but then she started training me to, she's a generation ahead of me. So she was part of the greatest generation to follow the tradition, carry on. That's kind of what they call the mystery school tradition. It's a teacher, student, teacher, student. You're passing the torch. The teacher picks a student, that student becomes a teacher, and then there's this unbroken kind of chain of connection. So we follow a very definite tradition, even though, again, we're talking about the old side of metaphysics, extremely clairvoyant. My beginning started, Dimitri, I'm Greek, Greek parents, and it was a very kind of, I would call it a normal upbringing. I was artistically inclined. My father was a doctor, my mother was artistic, and I was playing piano at a very early age. I thought maybe I'll go into classical music, but then I started falling in love with movies, and that became my passion. And yeah, I went first to New York, then to California, and California is kind of where you got to be if you're going to really do this. And as you know, being in the arts, you always are looking for that, even if you don't. I didn't know what metaphysics was, and as a Greek, you're born Greek Orthodox, but I would call us more cultural Greeks. I mean, we'd go to Easter and certain things like that, but we didn't go to church every Sunday. I wasn't adverse to God or anything, but it just, my mind was just kind of going in a different direction. But as you know, in the arts, you're always kind of looking for that thing you can't put your finger on, right? There's always something, listening to your muse, whatever terms you use it, an artist is already kind of in that zone. So I started having these I guess they call them spontaneous moments of just tremendous insights and clarity. They kind of came like the wind and they left like the wind. But definitely I was in a different state of consciousness when I was having them.
Okay,
And
so
then
literally, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Could you have been at the grocery store when this moment happened, or did they come
well,
when
one
you
time
were?
I was there was a beautiful in Chicago. I was raised in Chicago. There was a beautiful outdoor, there is still a beautiful outdoor shopping center called the Old Orchard.
Yeah.
So I was at Old Orchard, and yeah, it happened right as I was just walking outside. So I was not controlling this, and I
Wow.
was not labeling it anything. I was just, now these were not like I didn't feel unbalanced, or it wasn't like, there's stuff that was delusional. It was my feet were very flat on the ground. But just, these just magical moments. I don't know how else to put it. They did get so strong. At one point, I did have a definite awakening. But even then, I didn't know what name it. I didn't know what someone said, oh, you've had a religious experience. And I said, I'm not sure that was it.
Yeah.
But then when somebody said metaphysics, then that hit the big button. And I realized that's what it was. And being in Los Angeles, where so many pioneers in the field, started in Los Angeles, there were a lot of resources there. But I was very careful about mixing in with groups. Something just said, hold back on that. But at one point, I was invited to a dinner party, and they said, oh, this woman's going to do a meditation. I'd never meditated before. And it was Barbara. And she led this meditation. I still remember it to this day. And it was like, this ancient door opening up again. And then, yeah, I did afterwards start to sort of pour my heart out. I had all these questions. Not only was she answering with such clarity, she was giving language to what I was experiencing. And I realized, of course, oh my God, she's talking from her own experiences. And I thought we were having a great conversation. She joked, oh, you really interrogated me that first night.
Oh, good for you.
But I
Good.
knew that night she was my teacher. And then jumped right in. But it was more than just, you can pursue this work. Let's say you could be pursuing what you're doing and still be in graphic design. I could have stayed in the film biz, right? But I realized this was not just a personal journey that for me, now that's not true for everybody, but
For
for
me.
me, it was meant to be like a career.
Yep.
Now, that didn't happen right away. I was trying to blend the two for a while, but especially in those days, most of my friends, some doing very well in the business, thought, I had kind of lost my mind. Um, uh, so, so it was a bit of a struggle there, but I knew very clearly my direction. And then after a while, Barbara had, everything was inspirational. She had reams of notes, but no book yet, right? No course material, nothing formal. She was doing everything just herself, basically. And so we got to organize this stuff. We got to put it all together. And I knew we had to get that Aura book out there. And so that launched what was going to become the Institute, that launched this whole curriculum training. And then all this new inspiration started coming in. And again, surprise, surprise, she was training me to eventually teach, which took years. This did not happen quickly. And this is what I tell people, you don't jump on this kind of thing right away. I mean, Barbara was seeing auras from age 3, in addition to other things. She got her first training from a Hermetic scientist at age 11, but she didn't really start teaching till almost 40, because you don't want to rush onto that platform, because there's so much involved, as you know. It's a study. Metaphysics, you can go to a great workshop and be inspired, but metaphysics is like learning a language or learning a musical instrument. It's not going to happen overnight. And it really, if you're really going to, if you've had that awakening, I'm sure most people watching your podcast have already had, well, that's a divine knocking on your door. It's time to everybody's growing on this earth, but if you've got the call, it means you're supposed to put extra attention on it and make it an even higher priority in your life.
Yeah, and I love the story, and it's on y'all's website as well. Barbara talking to an archbishop. Do you know
Oh,
which
yeah.
story I'm
Okay.
talking? Can
Well,
you share that?
all right. So, she was born Depression era, right? Her father was actually a Greek Orthodox priest. In the Greek faith, you can marry if you do it before you're ordained. And 6 kids. Mother had to raise the family on like $60-$80 a month. I mean, that's a book all by itself. And again, from the beginning, she was seeing auras, but she didn't know what they were. And when she started talking about it, she was getting in trouble because she didn't realize other people weren't seeing this was just normal for her.
Yeah.
So at one point, there was this big celebration. There was a cathedral that was being inaugurated. And of course, the priest and the family was prominent there. And in the Greek faith, when you finish the service, you kiss the hand of the officiating priest, bishop, or in this case, archbishop. So Barbara's 4 years old now. This is a 4-year-old girl, right? She's watching the aura of the archbishop, and she doesn't see pretty colors around him. She sees these ugly colors, right? Now, the bishop that was like to his right, he had these beautiful pearl luster colors. So they were very different auras. And at the end, when it came time to kiss his hand, she refused and said, "No, come on, no." And she screamed in front of everybody, "I'm not kissing his hand. He's a monster. He eats children."
Oh,
She said that
how
was
was that
many
handled?
spankings.
Oh no. Okay, is it interesting that you guys, tell me if I've got this correct, are both from the Greek Orthodox religion?
Yeah, there's some very strange coincidences. We both
Wow.
started in the film business. She thought she was
Yes.
going to be in entertainment. So great. At 19, she's directing 300 people in a variety show, and she's going to have this big act in Las Vegas, because that was just when Vegas was starting. And the teachers came and said, "Well, you're meant to be you're meant to be a metaphysician." And she understood, but it was a hard decision. But even then, she met a lot of the greats in the golden age of Hollywood. She had a great story about Cecil B. DeMille. Cecil B. DeMille, the great filmmaker, The Ten Commandments, the greatest show on earth. She was invited to she actually was the greatest show on earth. She was friends with the casting director, and he said, "Look, it's a very close set. He doesn't like anybody. You've got to be a quiet like a mouse, like you don't even exist, or that's the last time I'm letting you off." He said. So she got onto the set. He was filming a scene. It was very dark, she said, and I just found whatever was a place I could sit, and I was there. And as the stars were coming in, they were saying hello to me like they knew me. I mean, these were big stars, right? And she's like, "Well, why are they act like they know me?" And then a moment later, she realizes, "Oh my God, I'm sitting in Cecil B. DeMille's chair." And I was
Wow.
like, "No, right?" So I'm got really
Yes.
kicked off. So she tried to grab her few things and leave. And just then he had just finished the shot, and she felt a hand on the shoulder, and it was him, right? And she turned around, and he said, "Well, what did you think of that shot?" He goes, "It was wonderful," just whatever it would say. But when she looked at him,
Ooh,
she could see he had the mystic sight,
no way.
and he could see it in her. And they ended up becoming friends. Unfortunately, it was at the end of his life, kind of when the friendship started. But how interesting. See, in his case, he was not meant to be a teacher,
Right.
And it's not in any biography book. You're not going to find that. But I mean, look at the movies he made. At the time, they said the Ten Commandments, people were saying, you help me find God again. This was more than a movie. This
Oh,
was like a revelation, right? Because he had all the mystical power. But in his case, he was, of course, one of the great pioneers of movie making, period. He helped to establish Hollywood. So that's how, it's funny how people, it depends on what their purpose is, right? We say in our work, there's two things you've got to pay the most attention to, your spiritual potential and your spiritual purpose. They're not the same thing, but they are interrelated. Spiritual potential is a very personal thing. That's like, how far up the spiritual ladder are you meant to climb in this lifetime? In other words, we have a spiritual, we come in at a certain level of our evolution. Earth is a schoolhouse for everybody, and we're meant to finish at a certain level. And our job is to hit that spiritual peak. Purpose is a cooperative thing. How am I contributing to the greater good? So someone like Cecil B. DeMille had this inner personal potential, but his purpose was to be a pioneering filmmaker. Barbara, of course, had the inner. I've had the inner, but the purpose was to teach. So we have to, and we tell people, look, because you've had the spiritual awakening, sometimes it is time to change career, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're exactly where you need to be. You could be an enlightened accountant. You could be an enlightened doctor. Whatever, you need to make sure, where are you best serving? Because if we're all building a cathedral, not everybody's going to be the architect, not everybody's going to be the stonemason, not everybody's going to be the stained glass maker. We've all got to play our part in the divine plan. And as long as you're playing that part, you will feel that sense of satisfaction. Everybody talks about, 100 places I'm going to go before I die, or I want to try every wine there is in the world. Okay, those are fun things to do, but there's nothing more satisfying than look back and saying, I did what I came here to do. And that's where we see right now we're being overly stimulated with a lot of options and things to do in our life. And we've got to be careful. We pay attention to what's the absolute most essential and not get distracted by these other things that can gobble up time. One of Barbara's favorite lines was from the Rudyard Kipling poem, If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. So I've actually tried to live by that myself, to really make the moment count with the things that are most essential. And that's actually what got me on my own teaching path. Not knowing it, I knew, there was a lot of things converging just before we started working on the book.
yeah.
And I knew I can't do all of this. I have to make a decision right now. Which way am I going in my life? And I knew I had to help Barbara get that book done. And that just clarified everything. My life suddenly became even more clearer, more focused, and it opened doors I could not have imagined at the time I made the decision. So I know it sounds corny, follow your bliss, but also remember, it may not take you to the end destination. I had a very good life in Chicago. I could have easily stayed there, but something called me to movie making in Los Angeles. But that was not my final destination. It was not movie making. It was something else. But if I hadn't have gone to Los Angeles, I may not have met Barbara. I may not have had the whole scenario that followed. So it's kind of like that labyrinth. What I love about doing the labyrinth, it's really one path, right? A maze is all these dead ends, but a labyrinth is one start point, one end, but all these twists and turns it takes to get to there sometimes.
Gosh. Okay, are you satisfied?
Well, I'm not done yet. Ask me
Great,
that on my
great
final day.
answer. Okay, in terms of this huge evolution, thank you for everything you've said so far. It's really cool. In terms of this great evolution that's going on, I watched one show. You described it like pus. And I love that analogy. I don't know if you remember that
Whoa, wait,
specifically.
not the evolution, not the evolution.
Right. What we're going through. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. That might sound funny if someone just came in right now.
Come on. Yes.
Evolution is pus. So yes, we are at a great spiritual renaissance. there are more people interested in the mystical life than ever before collectively. As you know, it wasn't that long ago. If you wanted to talk about or learn this, you had to be in a mystery school, an ashram, a secret society. This was not openly spoken of, right? And for good reason. It had to be protected. There's a lot of false prophets out there, a lot of ideas that are just totally off. So to preserve the quality of the teachings and the quality of what was being presented, you had to be initiated into these orders. But now what's happening is there's so many people that are having their spiritual awakening that what the higher tells us, there's more people ready for the higher life than there are qualified teachers. So we're in this stage right now where all humanity is going through a changing time, a natural evolution. Now, look, just like if you're in puberty right now, or whatever, I mean, you're not quite an adulthood yet, there can be these awkward moments, right? You don't quite have it all down yet, but you're figuring it all out. And we're going through these growing spurts right now. But we're also going through what some call the end of days. Now, I don't mean this that, there's going to be World War III tomorrow. But, and this is the way Barbara described it too so beautifully, it's like things that have already been going on that are not so great are now revealing themselves so you can see it. It's not like, oh, the world's gotten terrible. Look how, no, this has been around, but we're seeing it now more, not to say how terrible it is, but so we can exhume it. And that's the example of the pus. So let's say you've got this really bad infection and it's very infected, right? And there's this big bulging thing here. Well, sometimes you've got to literally lance the wound, let the pus come out, then dress the wound and it can heal. So in that sense of the word, we are still in the pus releasing stage.
Yes.
So you may hear terrible things going on. Please don't take the gloom and doom scenario. The world is not falling apart, okay? The world is in God's hands, but we are going through these growing stages right now. And, more than ever, what they tell us to do, there's never been a faster time to grow in the light. Unfortunately, never been a faster time to fall off the wagon. So just stay close to the light, stay close to the divine oneness. And even if you hear crazy stuff going on, hold to that compassionate view of not just each other, but of the world. Look, we are all sparks of this eternal life within us individually, but that means every soul on earth, collectively, civilization is a collection of these sparks of life as well. Yes, we do really stupid, crazy, sometimes terrible things, but that soul is inherently good. These are all the trials and tribulations as we're going through, dropping away centuries of old things, and now bringing up what will be a new era. We're not quite there yet, so we're the pioneers. When Barbara first talked about the aura, nobody knew what that was, right?
Gosh.
She said, I dropped the phone when I first got asked to lecture on it. I couldn't believe somebody wanted to hear about it, right? This is long before all of this.
Yeah.
Right? Now think where we'll be 50 years from now. That was 50 years ago when she started. So this is the point. We're growing. Now, I do understand there's a growing materialism where everybody's literally just saying, it's just atoms and energy bouncing around the universe, and that's kind of all there is. And that's going to, unfortunately, kind of escalate for a while, too. The mystical will escalate, but eventually it'll start to come together. Because in the end, the materialist is going to find life unsatisfying because we're not material. We're in a material body, but we're not material. So in the end, the soul's going to be crying out, this can't be all there is to life. There's a friend that he shared something very interesting when he, made it very big in the temporal world, let's put it that way, where you would think, oh, you couldn't be happier than that. And shared it was one of the saddest days of his life because he realized it wasn't giving him, of course, he was happy that he achieved it, but it wasn't really, there was still that missing piece. So you can be, president of a country or the richest person on earth. It doesn't mean you've got that satisfaction in your life and that sense of accomplishment if you're still got things you need to do in this earth.
I don't want to comment or have you talk more because I'm feeling okay, let me see how to say this. With my clients too, those that know about the evolution that's going on, when they're feeling negative, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes for a second. At this point, whenever there's negativity, let's say the dark powers or negative forces, whatever you want to call it, really enjoy that right now because things are loosening and there's so much divine light and positivity. So I express to them, do the best that you can to stay open, to stay, because if there's anything within you that is, they are just like, hey, oh, look, there's a little thing that's, let's get in there and let's feed it. Let's talk about it. So when you commented too, it's a for people to really fall off the wagon. They can really excel because that's what's happening with me right now. It's so yummy, and the support and the light, it's just so tangible. Yet if someone wants to go in the other direction, can you talk a little bit more? And we'll just stay on that for just a second.
Yeah, well,
Because
there's
I'm
a lot there
also
with what you're saying.
okay.
So please go ahead.
Okay, well, it's also like I'm also feeling, I'm telling my clients too, that the darkness is also going to come at you with friends and family and what you're watching as well. So it on a level, it's all around. So being that peace, being that calm, being in it but not of it is so important right now. All right, can you comment on that? Whew.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot there to unpack.
Yes.
First of all, remember we're only responsible for our own soul evolution. We're not responsible for another soul.
Yep.
So we all, nobody's perfect. Now, in the aura, there are these what we call enlightened energies and unenlightened energies. So, for example, I could be in love with somebody, and there would be this beautiful deep rose pink in my aura. But if I'm jealous because she likes somebody else, I'll have this dirty avocado green. I'll have an unenlightened energy. The two can coexist in the same auric field. So what happens is when you are now starting to take responsibility for yourself and not play the role of the victim anymore, then you have to acknowledge objectively, without self-condemning, I've got these good qualities, but I've also got these not so great qualities. I'm impatient. I can get a little abrupt at times. I can do X, Y, and Z. All right, so what do? You use the good to transform the not so good. So what we say in our classes, for example, bless someone that can push your buttons because it's revealing a weakness in yourself. Why were they able to even do it? Right? So when you're working with the light, and in our work, we do meditations a lot with light, it'll elevate your aura, but it'll also show these dark corners. Oh my God, I didn't realize the floor was so dirty over here. Now you can see it. Well, it's not to go, oh, it's just terrible. No, you got to just start cleaning it up. So when you notice something in yourself that isn't so wonderful, just focus on it and get rid of it. Gandhi, he's got a little autobiography. And one of the things I always walked away with from it is he was so forgiving with other people's faults. He was so relentless with his own. If he saw a flaw in himself, he did not rest till he corrected it. So that's the way we need to be without self-condemnation. Now, as far as what's coming in from the outside world, yes, we do live in a sea of energy. We are kind of like fish in the ocean there, right? And those fishies, if they start swimming in waters that aren't so clean, yeah, they bring that in. Now, of course, you can put protective light around you, which we all recommend to do. But also, you've got to be careful you're not reacting to negative energy. The Bible says, react not to evil, resist not evil, but the real translation there should be react not. So if someone gets mad at me, they're not realizing, they're sending me an unpleasant energy in my direction. It looks like a dirty, dark red energy. If I get mad at them back, I've actually let that energy into my aura, and now I'm giving it back, and that's why a fight kind of ensues. If someone's yelling at me, and of course, people we're going to be caring about, not a stranger on the street, if there's a way I could say to myself, no, I'm not reacting to this. We'll deal with it another way. Because the instinct is, oh, you hit me, I'll hit you right back. We're trying to live by the laws of spirit now, right? Not by the instinctual laws we have for untold eons of time. If you can do that, then that energy doesn't enter your aura. Nothing can enter your aura unless somewhere you are permitting it. Now, as far as the world consciousness, our biggest advice, and this has been coming through over and over and over again, do not give in to the gloom and doom scenarios. The minute you've done that, you've already started to invite those negative energies in. Yes, there is going to be ugliness in the world, but the world itself is in the hands of the divine. And your job is to be the change you want to see in the world. So you got to hold, what we call a compassionate picture for humanity. See humanity in its most ideal light, even if it's not behaving that way. That's the way the divine sees us, not in all the mistakes that we're making. They're seeing us already in that higher state of consciousness, even if we're not actually there yet. But that's how we get there. Let's say you love your child and they do something stupid. Well, you don't say, oh, you're the stupidest kid on earth. Well, some may say that. But it's a stupid thing they did.
Right.
But you see their bigger self, right? You know who they really, why'd you do that? You know better than that. You don't lose the perspective. So right now, you know what they were saying? A lie can travel the internet 6 times faster than the truth. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's because usually a lie is very dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
The world is falling apart. The Western Hemisphere disappeared yesterday. And then that instinct kind of kicks in to pay attention to it. Whereas truth is usually a little bit subtler. It doesn't scream and shout at you. So you have to pay a little bit more attention. But that tells us, be careful. There's a lot of great stuff being offered out there now, but there's also an incredible amount of nonsense. And one of the biggest things we have to do now is discernment. We have to be able to discern, but you can't discern until you can distinguish. And once you see, okay, here are the 2 options here are the different points of view. How do I make a determination? We're making a decision, as you know, in their country, this on presidential and down ballot and all of that. And it's so easy to kind of say, oh no, it's just this camp and this camp. But really, we've got to be more informed in general. Jefferson said, he did it. I forget the beautiful poetic way he said it, but basically, a democracy can't survive if there's ignorance, right? If the people are empowered to make a decision, then in order to make a good decision, they have to be informed and not fed with a bunch of stuff. Right now, everybody wants their stuff fed by, oh, I want it in TikTok, or I want it here, I want it in 2 seconds. It doesn't work that way. It takes time to assimilate real important knowledge and make real important decisions. So that's what I'm saying. The rules are the same, but the dynamics have changed so dramatically that we have a little more work today. But I'm very optimistic. I look at some of, especially the younger generations. They seem so darn smart right now.
Oh, that's so great, because it's kind of like not very smart, because of all the, I believe also all the toxins that are being put in food and just really to dumb us all down. So it seems like there's 2 parallels within that. And then those that are starting to awaken and so curious with what is actually going on in the world. So what are you seeing specifically?
Well, I'm just seeing that kids are smarter. They're not, I guess maybe when I came of age, there was sort of an optimism when I was just where, oh no, I'll find my way. There was just that feeling that it was going to be all okay.
Okay.
I see a lot of young people. It's not the kid. Don't make those assumptions. So they've got to be more. They feel they got to then be more educated and make decisions earlier and sooner, so that they're thinking ahead of the game. And that's the best way to do it. And it. One of the beautiful things is, as you may already know, is before a soul's incarnated, they're shown their tapestry of life, and they're also prepared for the world they're gonna. What if it's been 100 years since you've been on Earth? Well, the world was very different 100 years ago. So they kind of prepare you for the life you're going to be living now in the upcoming incarnation. But also, I do think parents have to be even more astute. There's an expression, give me the first 7 years of a person's life, you can have the rest. So much happens, and even oracally in the first 7 years. You want to make sure in those years you're giving the best quality love, attention, dedication. This one little girl, they were saying, there was a magazine there, and she was trying to tap it like it was a screen to turn the
gosh.
So she wasn't dealing with tactile things. Right. So you can't bypass those basic things. We can't make people that are, basically like robots, and all they can relate to is a computer. There's going to be plenty of time to deal with computers in your life. But when they're that age, they need to play with stuff. they need to get their hands on things because all those brain synapses are firing away and there's a lot going on then. So, but that also takes an educated parent to not say, I'm so busy, just go play the video game over there while I'm, not at that age. They need that real life attention because it's going to pay back space for you later on when they do get older. If they got a good foundation, they're going to turn into good adults.
And to make that point too, I have a client and I did this myself. My daughter, I have two daughters, didn't get phones until like the 8th grade.
Excellent, excellent.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and kids right now, 3rd,
They
4th
probably
grade.
complained to you before that happened, right?
Oh, yes. And I had my one clients in Philly. The two girls are twins. They came up to me. They're like, Eden, we need to talk to you. Mom needs to get us a phone. Can you help us with that? And I'm like, well, I hate to break this to you girls, but I think she's doing a great job. And I think waiting as long as possible is good. And both of them were like, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
But
Yes,
they're
it
going to
is.
be thanking mom later on for that.
Well,
They're,
just the
yeah.
social media pressures. I,
Oh
I
my
can't,
goodness.
I can't even imagine being a teenager with all of that that's in the world right now. It's very, and I
Better to
give.
delay that part of it. There really is no need to, and then they're better strengthened. I mean, what was that story of she was a 13-year-old. She was texting 200 times a day. Her mom was going to punish her for something, so she took her phone away, just thinking, oh, I'll take the phone away. They had to call the police. She became violent.
Yep.
It was an addiction.
Yep.
Yeah, it was completely out of control. So that is not a healthy scenario there. Yeah.
How would you suggest balancing that, especially today in the pressures that parents are also under? Oh,
Yeah.
you need to have a phone so Susie can text Sally or whatever. What would you suggest in terms of balance?
Well, first of all, I do agree delaying is a very good idea.
Okay.
But also, I think more than ever, parents have to communicate with their children, not like they're adults, but they have to feel like I can really talk to you. Even let's say when they're teenagers, and normally they would not talk about, oh, there's a lot of drugs and drinking at this party or there's sex going on. They could be able to talk to their parents about it
Yeah.
and not feel like the
Chills.
parents are the opposing force.
Mhm.
So that way they're understanding also that if they more they realize this is part of their growing, the real thing is not how you're getting along the second, but how you're laying down the foundations of your life. Because we know sometimes the most popular kid in high school is not the most successful one out there in the real world. So you help them plan for what is the important things. And yes, you want to make sure they're having good, healthy interactions. Now that's another thing. What do they start mixing with people that are doing crazy stuff, right? So they're doing fine, but now they have to learn. Now, obviously, at some point, they have to figure it out for themselves. But the more it's kind of laid down earlier, and then I think it's also trust that if you've done your job as a parent, well, your kid's going to be smart about it. They're not going to fall apart the minute you're not there. They're going to figure it out. But you gave them the foundation that they needed to do it. Look, one of the most, and the higher share, one of the most sacred things we could ever do on this earth is to bear children. Whether you choose in this lifetime to have one or not, it's one of the most sacred, honored things there is to do. And by the way, even though it's not a money-making profession, it's one of the best professions to be a parent that you'll ever do. So we've got to, regardless of what society's saying, oh, you got to make more money, all this stuff that's going on right now, we can't lose sight of the fundamentals. The family unit is the backbone of civilization. If those pieces are in place, civilization will be fine. And I think just the parent needs to be more informed and they got to be more proactive. And I understand the problem if let's say, even parents have to work all day or both parents have to work all day. I mean, if there is a way to spend a little more time with your kid early on, there should also be more, even let's say, paid family leave where that you
Yeah.
you can give that time to be with your child at these it's a societal thing. It's not a personal thing. That kid is forming so much in those early times there, and that bonding with the parent. I mean, I was very fortunate. My mom got to be a stay-at-home mom, and I feel sad those that didn't, at least in those early years, didn't get to have that because I know it helped to create an internal sense of stability. You know?
Man, okay. Interesting to go down this path. In talking with parents, tell me if you agree with this. I had a class at a middle school before COVID, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and the boys pulled out their phone. Okay, I'm gonna be pretty frank about this. Seventh grade, and
Yeah,
pulled up their porn on their phone in front of me and in front of everybody else. And I just sat there and I was like, whoa, today's parent, I believe you got to talk about things that you never thought you
I
would
know.
talk about early on. What would you say to that?
That's a tough one. I
Yeah,
really wish they would regulate that more. I
oh my
think that's out
gosh,
of control.
I
Um,
agree.
where we just there's time enough to get involved with that. You don't want to overly look. There's a reason puberty hits at the age it hits, right? You're not
Mhm.
supposed to be sexually active before a certain period of time. But if you're throwing sexual material before it's time, it's confusing the psyche and it can start to prematurely sort of excite things, which is not a balanced way to be. You know, we all know the sexual drive is one of the big things of, of adulthood and how we handle those early years. But okay, there's the first 7 years. Now, here's interesting from the auric point of view.
Yeah.
The first 7 years, the aura isn't even really fully solidified until age 7. So, and that's also because the kids got to learn so much. If there are too many filters, there's too much self-awareness, they may not even learn to talk, right? So they're just taking it all in and just absorbing. Then the aura is more or less set at age 7, although of course it can be changed, and it is, but basic patterns are set. But the next big key
Can I
is,
ask you, Dimitri, can you just give a basic definition of the aura?
oh,
Because
sure,
this is
sure.
a great lead into that.
Okay, so the aura is a vibratory essence that surrounds all living things. It's the energetic blueprint of the soul. Everything going on with you is in your auric field. It's the fuel of your evolution. The most important thing you can do, I can do on this earth is earn light. We are going to take that to the other side. It is literally what is helping to fuel our evolution by every good thing we're doing, thinking, feeling, and by how we're deliberately trying to now help us evolve our soul. So your career, everything we just talked about, your kids, your family, your career, it's all in your auric field. There's nothing that's not there. The aura doesn't lie. You could say, oh no, I'm XYZ, but if the aura shows something else, this is who you are. Okay.
Mm,
Exactly. So, but that's because that's the energy flow. So it is the fuel of everything you're doing. The reason we call the book Change Your Aura, Change Your Life is that to create anything in our life, the energy of it has to first be in the aura. If that energy is in the aura by divine law, it will show up in your life. And if it's not in the aura, you just got to build it. So, for example, everybody loves this one, right? The spiritual energy of prosperity, the consciousness of prosperity, shows up in the auric field as a turquoise ray, a turquoise light, that like the stone, right? A turquoise stone light. If it's not in your aura, you've got to build that. Give you a very,
mhm.
very quick example of this. When I was still in the film business and just met Barbara, as you probably know from your graphic work, you can sometimes be feast and famine. You're
Yes.
working all the time or you're not working at all. So I was in that not working mode for a moment. And but Barbara in a usual understated way. Now, this where I'm getting to the anatomy of the aura, but the heart chakra here is connected to the activities of your life. So right now, the literal things you're doing in your life, career, finances, relationships, it's all showing up right here, right? So she casually looked at my heart center and said, oh, that's a beautiful turquoise light coming out of there. Prosperity,
Yes.
hermetic, world affairs. But that exact moment, it was not showing itself, okay? But literally 2 weeks later, I got the most lucrative job offer in the film business I'd gotten up to that time. I was doing my homework, but sometimes things take a little bit to turn around. As long as you're building that energy, you're moving things in the right way. So we're building this power, but even the aura, just like a child has got to grow from a child to an adult, the aura takes a while to fully phase in. It doesn't come in all at once. So whatever the soul has earned from, a previous incarnation, it's going to bring that power back, right? And it phases in distinct stages. There's three very important distinct stages. One is the 7 years old. The other one is 12, interesting enough, at puberty. Because at puberty, there is this whole other natural force we know too well about that's also opening up. But if you can harness that energy early on, some people, when they go at puberty, they go nuts, but others take it kind of cool, right? And again, those seem to be often the ones that end up doing better, where they don't go crazy over that. Even there's all this peer pressure, but half the peer pressures, they're trying to figure out what to do too. Your cronies don't really know what's going on. They're the same age as you. They're just reacting to it this way, or what they were told by others that supposedly know more about these things, right? And then the final one is 16. At 16, the full energy of the aura comes in. And from the point of view of the aura, you are an adult. And also, I know we're talking about family law today. So while we're responsible only for our own evolution, a parent does take on certain karmic responsibilities because it has to make decisions on behalf of the child. But after 16, the child takes on full karmic responsibilities for their actions.
Ooh,
So just
I
think
didn't know that. Thank you.
just think what you did at 17 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a really great piece of info.
Yeah. So again, this is why I know parenting is hard work, right? But if you can help through these stages, these milestones that are going on spiritually within the soul, and again, the child may have no idea what is going on consciously, but we also feel like I'm getting more stronger in something, it's the now normal maturity. But if you've got your act together, say at 16, 17, you're in great shape. From then on, that means when you get into your 20s and you start pursuing your career or family or whatever it is, you're focusing in the right direction, and you didn't pay attention to all this nonsense. You just have to prepare your kids for that. You're going to see some crazy stuff, son, daughter, but please don't get fooled by it. It's good. You're going to have your time when it's time for you to say, in terms of intimacy or family or children, but don't let others pull you in crazy directions. It's a tough nut. And again, I wish there was more. I know you can put parental controls on your thing here, but the kid over here may have zero parental controls.
Exactly.
And they just have to be prepared for it.
Okay, Dimitri, let me ask you, thank you for talking more about the aura too. Okay, here's an interesting question that's just popping in. In terms of building trust with your youngin, what would you suggest?
Honesty and love. Be honest with your child and be loving. Nothing talks better than love. When you love your kid, I mean, I would said at the Democratic National Convention with the son of Tim Walz, right? He, regardless of what you think it was a political thing, he said, "That's my dad." I mean, that you could tell right away, he must be a great father for him to say that at that moment, right? So give your love, kid. You're not going to be perfect. Don't expect to be the perfect parent. You're going to make mistakes, but also don't be just a friend. I think sometimes
Yes. Oh my gosh.
are too easy and it's okay, figure it out. No. Sometimes you got to discipline.
Yep.
You are the parent first, the friend second. And even if they fight you to, oh, I hate you for that, or this, whatever, just again, say it in love, find a way to do it, but be firm, because again, if they're unruly at that age, what are they going to be when they're 20? Okay.
Right. I feel being a parent, my girls are 22 and 20, and I have a special needs child as well. Yeah, you discover so much truth within yourself and what you're made of when you have kids as well. Because like this unconditional love and unconditional parenting, it ain't for the meek.
No. And you see yourself in your kids, right? When they start
Mhm.
mimicking you and not always in the way you would like them to.
Thank you. All right. What else can we discuss about the aura? And we'll go into the Just Be practice
Well,
in a
I do
moment.
want to, I know we're rounding up. A lot of our work is around meditation with the aura. So
Love
the
meditation.
Change Your Aura book was not, ironically, it's called Change Your Aura, Change Your Life, but it's really a meditation book. The idea is meditating with the aura. So if your listeners are not meditating, our first thing is get on that, find a meditation that agrees with you, but be consistent. And just like tithing, tithing's supposed to be the fruits of your first income, not at the end when you paid all your bills. Make meditation the centerpiece of your day and watch how the rest of your life kind of starts to fall into place. I've been meditating for 40 years, doing the light meditations, and I can't imagine doing it without it. It's your Now, some people say, oh, I meditate walking on the beach. Well, that's meditative, perhaps. But the meditation I'm speaking of, the body is physically still, the mind is alert, you have no distractions around you, and you're letting yourself get tuned into that inner divine part of you, because that's who you really are. And that sort of like arms you so that when you do go out into the battlefield of life, let's call it that, you're able to keep that balance and not lose your head about you so much.
And I will second that because I heard you talking about this in another podcast too. I think meditation is the basis of everything. That if you, to me, when I had my first awakening, it was a meditation class.
Oh,
And I didn't realize that part of my, like, I, in advertising was like, oh, I'm really off balance. I'm working too much. Yet it was about discovering God. I didn't realize that that was the real meaning. And in those quiet moments, you get out of all that garbage. And it's like peeling the onion too. There's so much garbage and letting go of this garbage, letting go of that garbage. But that allowed me to listen to God. And I grew up in the deep South where everyone's like, oh, God is, God is it. God. And I didn't grow up in a church. So I had to find it out for myself, even though I
that's
tried. So it is the, I'm going to hammer this in for a moment. It is the pinnacle. It will help you with all of this. It'll help you become more spiritual, more connected. Yeah, it is everything.
you have just hit another major key, which could be a whole other podcast, is
Oh my gosh.
not doing this on our own. Okay, this is not a solo effort.
Yes.
So regardless of, some people, it's ironic, we would do these workshops sometimes and people say, oh, I love, working with the light and the energy, but why does Barbara have to bring in all this God stuff? And we're divorcing from the source of where all this is coming from. Now, I understand we have these
Yes.
sometimes experiences that are not good and, that turn us off on different things. And then we say, well, if that's what God's about, I don't want to be part of it. No, that's what that person might have been about.
Yeah.
But we have to realize there's a divine source of all this. And I think one of the most exciting things of all in this Renaissance is a more mature understanding of who and what God is. Now that we understand the world better, we understand the staggering size of the universe physically better, that's beckoning. It's time to understand the spiritual universe better. So this is one of the greatest things here, is to sort of, it's not like God ever left, but finding God in the 21st century in a way that we can be part of all the other things we've discovered about things right now. So it's not like it changed, but obviously the ancients had to speak in the language of their day, right? And it's like if you want to enjoy Shakespeare, well, you got get a little bit first in the Shakespearean language, or you're not really going to be able to appreciate a play. Then you realize all the genius and all the brilliance. So some of the ancient teachings, whether it's in the Bible, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it's some of the the other Hindu scriptures, you got to get a little bit of the mindset of where those great mystics were writing that, how they're, because the truths are eternal, but they are clothed in, the Kabbalah would call them vestments of their day, and you can't look at the vestments, you have to look at what's under the vestments. So as sooner we kind of get back in touch with that true God center and through our relationship, we can't begin to understand God if we don't understand ourselves. So we've got to understand who we are. Then we can start to understand that source. And then a lot of anxieties are going to just start dropping away, because this is not fantasy. This is not wish fulfillment. It's not these are real. And then it comes with an inner stability so that when these slings and arrows are getting thrown at us, we're stronger.
I was going to ask you a question that in terms of what you were saying, and I love that maturity with source or God, because I personally, and I say this on the show, like every week I'm expanding. And it's just, especially right now, that maturity, that understanding, especially someone who's like you, been in it for a while. It's just so neat to watch the changes in
Right,
myself
right,
right
right.
now, and knowing that coordinates or correlates to everybody else. It's just
Well,
amazing.
that's that, by the way, that's the big thing. So some people say, okay, great about the aura, but I don't see it. You don't need to see the aura to work with it. When you do exactly what you just said, when you start to see real changes in your life, not like, oh, I just felt good for a day and back to the way I was. But when you start to see these lasting changes, then you realize, oh, wow, these things really are real. They really do work.
Okay. Well, I think this is a perfect segue into the Just Be practice. What do you have for us today, Dimitri?
Just be
Well, shall we
practice.
do a meditation?
Oh, heck yes.
All right, I'll
Yep.
give you a choice. So let's see. We could do a love meditation, a prosperity meditation, or a wisdom meditation. Which one do you think we should do?
Oh my gosh. At first, it was like prosperity, but then I'm going towards wisdom. Let's do wisdom.
Okay, okay. So in the aura that comes through is a really brilliant gold light. So when you have a lot of gold in your aura, you're decisive, you have a lot of dynamic, you don't let people push you around, that kind of a thing. And, I know people confuse being aggressive with being dynamic. We're not talking about being aggressive. We're talking about standing up. You're talking about when those things are getting hurled at you, you need a lot of dynamic power to say, no, I refuse it. So this will give you that. And the wisdom, now, of course, no light will automatically bring in wisdom, but it'll help to set the condition for wisdom to arise. Remember, wisdom is earned experience. As you understand the lessons that the experiences of your life are giving you, you are earning wisdom. So this will help us to understand every situation in your life is an opportunity to grow your soul. Okay, here we go.
Beautiful.
Now I'm going to focus on, well, let's just follow along.
Okay.
Explain it too much. I will bring it into the chakras, and I will ask if everyone would envision about 2 feet above their head a golden white sun. This is like an 8th chakra, and this is your higher self. This is the ambassador of the light. It's flowing from the divine source to that higher self, and then to you. I do a little invocation and then a little guided meditation. So I'll ask the gold light to come into those 4 centers. Okay, here we go. Heavenly Father, Holy Mother, God, we raise our consciousness into thy consciousness, where we become one with thee. We ask to receive that which we need and that which we need to know now. Place your attention in that golden white sun above your head. This is your higher self point of spiritual knowing. It is a divine part of you. And as you do this, let go of any cares or concerns you may have at the moment. Right now, you are standing on sacred ground. And then we request from the divine source to down ray the golden ray of wisdom light, this dynamic divine power, to flow into that golden sun above the head in a burst of light, and then down ray it into our auric field to strengthen and fortify our aura, beginning with strengthening the connection to our own higher self, to receive greater flows of inspiration, to be more open to guidance and direction, as this higher self is always trying to steer you in the right direction. Then let this light gently enter into the mental center, the nucleus of your conscious thinking self. Every thought you have is radiating an energy from this part of you. And may our mind be filled with wisdom, illumination, understanding, and dynamic divine power, so that we are mentally strong in everything we do. And then from here, let it down ray to our throat center, the power of our words. May there be more spiritual tone in the very words we speak, moving out in that magnificent, dynamic, golden light. And then thank you for downraying this light to the heart chakra, also known as the Hermetic Center, the energetic nucleus of all our human earth affairs. And may this golden light outray into all the activities of our life, persons, places, things, conditions, and situations, and conditions that constitute the situation. Grant unto us greater self-confidence, self-assurance, and more dynamic power to take bold steps in our spiritual unfoldment. And then to downray this golden light to a chakra point by our navel, our emotional center, the energetic nucleus of our feeling nature. And here to strengthen the emotions. If we feel a little sensitive or a little overreactive, to steady the emotional nature, strong, sturdy emotions, so that the emotions and the thoughts are working together to produce positive results in our life. And thank you for outraying through the physical body to strengthen the physical framework and out through the whole auric field, so that we are one body in thy body of divine wisdom. Let the golden light of protection surround everything just received. We thank thee that this is so, so be it. Okay. That's the golden light meditation. Yeah.
I'm feeling all happy. Dimitri, I think I said your last name, so Moraitis. Is that correct?
Moraitis, right?
Okay. And it's so neat. Okay, that was great, by the way. So neat that you were in my house before I even met you. I think that was so great. I thank you so much for bringing your wisdom here to us today. And I'm just so appreciative of all the work that you've done and deciding that you were going to step into this spiritual journey. And I think we're going to close in just a second. If you can hang with me for just a second so we can say a personal goodbye. And I say this every show. Sorry, y'all have to listen to that. Is there anything else you want to say?
You know, the only thing is, yes, try to make meditation a daily practice, but also make your spiritual growth as best you can an even higher priority in your life. It'll take you to extraordinary places.
Amen. I think that's the perfect thing to leave with. All right, y'all. See you next week. Again, thank you so much, Dimitri. Bye-bye. Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, True Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.